sallow daylight, his tattoos were mottled like bruises, but after sunup, they were sharpened. As he lay, facing away from her, his back exposed, a great blue wave covering it like a dragon's mouth, fang-like foam on its jagged crest, tipping past the top of his spine, the well-known print of the Japanese wave at Kanagawa that most people recognized, except that in this depiction, Sharkey was surfing the great curved face of it. In his tattoo, he was crouched on his longboard, one arm extended, as he had surfed a 45-footer at Waimea or the great wave at Cortez Bank. But Cortez was so far offshore, a submerged island more than 100 miles in the ocean west of San Diego. Only the boatman had seen him, and few people knew that it was one of his triumphs. Tribal slashes of black, licks and ribbons covered his upper arms and deltoids, and the syllable Om in complex Tibetan brushstrokes on each declivity of his shoulders. His arms, full sleeves, were enclosed by bands of shark's teeth, stylized, triangular. A snake circled his left wrist like a bracelet, an Ouroboros, its tail in his mouth. On his right arm, more shark's teeth, a frigate bird on the back of his hand, his power animal, he called it, flattened, his wings outspread, also serving as the image of a compass. Some were faded, some were fresh. All had meaning. Hawaiian dots, many of them like pinpricks, a constellation of them on his fingers, and, balancing that pattern, the Southern Cross on his right foot, below an anklet of dolphins. Tattoos hammered into his skin, rat-tatted with blunt, inky spikes in Tahiti and Samoa, and poked into him with a chattering needle in Santa Cruz and Recife and Cape Town. Devanagari script from India, a lozenge that looked Egyptian, single words like the name on the meat of his thumb. An old girlfriend? Olive had finally asked him, but no. My mother. And he seemed lovable saying that. Your mum, she said. She cocked her head at him and kissed him. Your mother. Perhaps she thought the whole of his life was inked across his body, that she'd know him better by studying his skin. He was hearty and 24 years older, but the lover she'd longed for, passionate, but secure and successful enough not to intrude in her privacy. She wanted to be loved, but not possessed. Sharkey was too self-absorbed and fanatical about surfing to be possessive. He stirred. He seemed to know, hyper-alert in his nakedness, that he was being observed, and perhaps felt her warm breath on him. Then he turned over and saw that she was wide awake, hovering. He kissed her, embraced her, her small warm breasts fitting his hands. Sharkey loved to sleep, because his sleep, like the saturation of a drug, was so much like drifting in the ocean, toppling and bobbing like flotsam. And he was, as they said in Hawaii, a waterman, the shark. In his house in the woods, on a bluff above the sea, he lay buoyant in sleep, levitated in noiseless night and darkness. There he hovered, tremulous with the ripple in his sinuses of small snores. Hours of that, until in the aqueous shallows of slumber the day got into his dreams. Someone must have mentioned surfing while stoned, or asked him if the story was true, or repeated it to him, of his eating mushrooms and paddling into the surf at Waimea in the dark, and the rest of it, swimming on his board out to sea for safety, and ending up thrashing ashore beyond Pipeline, the old tale haunting him in his dreams. He was so expert a big-wave surfer that stories like that, his own fictions, the wilder exaggerations of others that were attributed to him, added to his fame and made him a legend. His admirers were the most inventive, eager to improve upon their hero. The dispute in his dream unsettled him, because there were always doubters. But he smiled when he woke from it, because he was so young in his dreams, and, awake, he knew he was 62. And at once